Welcome to NVIDIA GTC. So my name is Rick Champagne, and I am on the Media and Entertainment team at NVIDIA. And today, I'll be your host for the session. So a few things before we get started, the first of which is the session recording will be available within 72 hours to attendees after this time period right now, and then within a month for the on-demand at NVIDIA.com. Also, please download the app if you haven't done that. There is a GTC app, and you'll get the latest session information, any updates that may have happened along the way, but also there is a session survey and more in the app as well. And then the exhibit hall opens at noon today, so please check that out. The world's most advanced tech all under one roof is quite amazing. I was down there yesterday. Please check it out. It's unbelievable. And then, of course, we have a happy hour down there as well from 5 to 7 p.m. So you'll want to check that out as well. And so now we're going to get started with our session, Immersion in Sphere, Redefining Live Entertainment Experiences. We have with us today Sphere Entertainment and Seventh Sense, and Seppi Mo here will be your guide. So I'm going to turn it over to Seppi, but before that, just also right around the 40-minute mark, we may have time for questions, and there's a microphone in the back if you're in the room. If you're online, please add your questions in the app, and the top questions that get upvoted, we'll ask those at the end. So thank you very much, and Seppi Mo, over to you.
Thanks so much, Rick. Welcome, everyone, to our panel. We have a really exciting conversation in store. I am Seppi Motamedi. I manage our live media solutions product and industry marketing, and I'm joined with some wonderful panelists who I'm going to get to introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex Luthwaite. I work for Sphere Entertainment. I'm responsible for the show systems that we put the shows on within that building.
Morning, I'm Joshua Groh, SVP of Core Technology, responsible kind of the slate to screen, how we get images from the camera all the way to a massive dome.
And my name is Paul Breen from Sphere Entertainment. I'm the Vice President of Playback. I cover a lot of the theatrical production in Sphere, including video, audio, and show control.
And hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Johnson. I'm a Principal Systems Engineer for Seventh Sense. We are a hardware and software solutions company, and we were asked to join this project by Sphere Entertainment.
Wonderful. You know, Sphere, it's such an incredible achievement from an architectural perspective, a technological perspective, certainly from an experiential perspective. So we're going to get into how it all came together, what it took to build it out. But first, to put our conversation into some context, we have a video for you. Yeah, it looks unreal. So Alex, maybe to start us off, what was the vision that led to the making of Sphere?
Ultimately, it came from our chairman. So we run, obviously, the Garden in New York, and we have a lot of shows come through that. And really, the basis of design for sort of live entertainment shows tends to be built around ice hockey arenas or basketball courts. So there's a very similar footprint. You go and see a live band, there tends to be a stage, some speakers hanging, and a set of lights upon a variation of those. And really, it's like, well, we wanted to do something different. We really want to engage the audience more. Instead of having them sit there and passively watch a show, how do we take you somewhere? How do we transport you to do something else? But also, how do you do that in a shared environment? So it's very similar to putting it on headsets, but the problem when you put headsets on, it isolates yourself immediately. So how do I take the whole family and we all engage and we all watch the same thing at the same time and really do something differently?
And you know, some of the images we saw in this video are just incredible. the exterior, the interior LED screens, they've gone viral. And can you talk a bit about the specs of what we're looking at there?
Absolutely. The interior, 160,000 square feet of LED compound curved screen. The crux is in the compound curve. Typically, LED screens are, the diodes are a uniform X and Y value. We couldn't do that here, of course. We're defying physics, so we had to do that. Of course, you cannot see any grout lines or any seams or any panels out because it immediately loses the illusion of us taking you somewhere. The outside is 1.3 million puck products. They're about sort of this hockey puck sized. 8 inches on spacing, interlace spacing. Each diode has 48 diodes each. So yeah, a lot of LEDs and a lot of control, which these guys can tell you all about in a second. But yeah,
It's just
big venue.
such incredible scale. Why is that important?
Really, it's to do with the shared experience. We wanted a large number of people in there to experience this at the same time. Even when we sell cinematic seats in a sort of cut-down mode, it's still the biggest cinema you'll ever go to. It's all about shared experience. It's all about scale. It's really also about the distance you are from the screen. And so, if you're too close to a screen, you're uncomfortable sitting there. So it had to be of scale, of size. I say to get those sort of, it's a Venn diagram of enough people being far enough from the screen, a shared experience, and also, you're right, having that wow factor and that scale to be able to put on big events.
Yeah, and I imagine that informed maybe the pipeline that you architected as well, just some of the processes and technologies. Paul, can you talk a bit about that?
Yes, sure, certainly. So when we were coming up with the design for Sphere, we actually, back in 2017, we had a very similar project over in Radio City where we projection mapped the entire inside of Radio City, all the ceilings. And the pixel space on that is quite big. It's 14,000 by 14,000 pixels. And there's also an 8K, raw 8K LED wall as part of that system. And when we were developing that system back in 2017, that led to a lot of the thoughts and concepts for Sphere, because it was down to managing a lot of computerized systems on a large scale and having them all function all in tandem, all in sync at the same time. So when we started with Radio City in 2017, we set forth about coming up with the plans for Sphere. And that meant coming up with the concept for processing 16K native content raw from scratch, which Josh will get into in a second. But then on the theatrical playback in Sphere itself, we had to come up with a streaming NAS that was able to stream out all of the content from one device that hits these end boxes built by 7 Sense, called 7 Sense Actors, and they output the video directly to screen itself. It's quite a large amount of processing just to get all the content in play. But we should probably start with the 16K plates from the camera.
Yeah, I think talking about pipeline, anyone that's worked or developed pipeline's never finished. You're continuously evolving, and that jumping into the Sphere in the beginning, we were working with a camera system that was an array, so we had to kind of build a pipeline that managed that was able to process that. So we had to kind of look at the workflow as functions, kind of almost like Lego bricks, knowing that we may have to evolve and pull this brick out and put a new brick in. When the inception of the Big Sky camera that we built at Sphere, it captures 18K by 18K, which is bonkers. And once you start getting into the numbers of that, there's a whole workflow of how do we even move this stuff? How do we process any of this data? So we had to really, again, from a pipeline perspective, kind of shift and start creating, processes from the second, we get data off the camera that captures at 30 gigs a second. Each mag holds about 32 terabytes, which is essentially 17 minutes of content. How do we push that through the pipeline efficiently? And it also brings up, and I think it's something we can talk about more, is the storage implications with that is insane. So we've really had to evolve as we've gone through. Like I would say the first 2 years were R&D. It was just like, how are we even going to do this thing? Like, what are we doing? And then we just keep learning more and more. And I think as technologies change, as cameras advance, we'll continue to do that.
And so you mentioned that workflow from camera to screen. What generally is happening? Can you take us through all the different steps?
Yeah, a lot. So when we get the original camera media off of the Big Sky camera, it has to be processed to be usable for visual effects or compositing. So it goes through a process where we create those working plates, the mezzanine plates, and then we create the proxies. Our proxies are 4K. So again, storage implications are a thing. So once we've processed those plates, it goes into the creative, and you have your compositing or your visual effects. And again, we're working proxy level 4K. But then once we get to a point where we're happy with what we're seeing, it now has to be carved, and this is where it kind of leads into playback. So we had to build a pipeline to essentially carve that final image into 25 different segments to be spread across the 7 Sense servers, and I'll let you guys kind of go more into detail there.
Don't forget we have to copy it a whole bunch of times too.
Oh, yeah.
We're just talking about storage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like all original camera media, 2 gold copies, 1 backup. Yeah, storage budgets are the
Bane of my existence.
Exactly.
Should we talk about data sizes for any, like a show?
Yeah, so looking at Postcards from Earth, roughly a 50-minute show, the final deliverable was roughly 400 terabytes for 50 minutes. The OCM captured, which was total original camera media, was 107 minutes captured, roughly 6 petabytes of data. And then there's all of the processed footage, the EXRs, the working files, the nuke, all of that roughly came in around 6 to 7 petabytes as well. So for one 50-minute show, we were roughly looking at, 12 to 13 petabytes easy. So, yeah.
The numbers are insane.
The
It's
numbers
insane.
are crazy. The numbers are crazy. And so, AJ, let's talk about the underlying technology that you helped to facilitate.
Sure.
Like, what did it take to make all of this happen?
So 7 Sense is not a stranger to large-scale systems. I think the performance scale on this project was what was so fascinating, right? So this is a uncompressed 12-bit media that we're running through the system. And I mean, as Josh says, once all this media gets into, we built a custom kind of centralized storage for distributing data. Thinking about how you use the system is key. It can't be a nightmare to move content around in hours of loading and unloading and changing direction, because creatively we wanted to offer the ability to, at the last minute, make adjustments, or if there's different shows that come in, obviously that's a whole nother movie. How do you move things around? You end up filling up hard drives, and your typical practice of building a server with internal hard drives, and that is just didn't seem to fit the picture. So we developed, worked with Hitachi and developed a NAS, a large multi-petabyte NAS storage system, in which it moves the data around utilizing a lot of NVIDIA hardware, our ConnectX 6 high-speed network cards, for moving large amounts and data at fast rates around the system to get it on and off these boxes where we need. But we came to realize that with the multiple shows that were being produced, streaming that data in real time would be much more efficient, and it would allow a kind of dynamic selection of shows at any point in time based on who's coming into the facility. And that was a challenge in itself, because to maintain frame accuracy, 12-bit media at a rate of around 7 gigabytes per second out to all of our endpoints with 50 to 60 endpoints is an incredible networking kind of topology exercise, let alone the fun kind of what we're going to do with it once it actually gets there, and if it gets there on time. So once we sort of crossed that bridge, we had to really develop new software. Asset management is inside of our Compare software, 7 Sense Compare software, and that allows the operators and the users to sort of look at it as just one movie, regardless of the fact that it's 25 carves and it's this monster frame size type data. To them, it's just one movie. You drag it onto a timeline, or you drag it into the project, and you're able to use it and be creative with it. And that was sort of the goal. And then as that works through the system, we developed some kind of LED processing products, our Juggler LED and image processing products that then take the pixels to the screen. And I mean, from loading that content out to the screen, I don't think it touches any copper along the whole way. I mean, everything is now this new high-speed network topology, which is fascinating. So it's
and don't forget that it obviously is not just a playback device. We have to do live shows in here. So people want to have cameras behind them. They want to have, be able to manipulate imagery in real time. They want to be able to have effects and layers and all these sorts of things. So it went from just playing back a movie to suddenly becoming a live venue, and added multiple layers of complexity to these guys' projects.
And you chose to standardize on 2110. Can you talk about why you chose to do that?
Sure. So 2110 was a definitely good choice for us across the board because it gave us two very, very big good things. Latency was brought down to next to nothing. It's so fast. SE2110 is line rate network speed. Second thing is redundancy. When we were originally planning on Sphere, we were planning on deserving out of the GPU's DisplayPort cables. Now, if you try to run this many connections, hundreds of connections with DisplayPort, you'll find that there's no such router where you can switch one input to another output with this many devices. So we decided to engage 2110. And that required development across many different manufacturers to make 2110 work. But then when we did that, we got redundancy and timing like we've never had before. So we've got over 100% redundancy on every single device in the entire system in Sphere. Plus, we've got spare backup hot rolling devices if we need to take another device online. So 2110 was an absolute game changer across the board.
Yeah, physical scale with the performance scale. MSG decided to make this completely redundant so that the reliability of the system and having people in this amazing space is great, but if the system starts to go down, you're in trouble. So we built an entire secondary system that's online in real time. And sort of with that redundancy, to have the flexibility to be dynamic with any server or any processor can really play any role because it just lives on this common network was the way to do this. And that was a new thing. I've been designing systems for a while, and we've never really gotten to that point where it's a virtual matrix in a lot of ways. And if you have a box fail, you can slide another one in. The content isn't local because it's streaming from a NAS on the network, so it really opens up doors to do lots of great stuff. And as Alex was saying, now with cameras and all these other sources coming in onto this network, onto this ST2110 broadcast compliant network, now we can pull those in as capture resources. So it's a pool of data, whether it's our streaming sources or whether they're capture cameras or things like that, and then we can composite them in our software and get them out to the screen. It's fascinating. Yeah.
And we are at GTC, so I have to ask, what were the NVIDIA technologies that you were using?
Quite a few. We have, I believe in Sphere, I was running these numbers the other day, I think we have over 400 devices of ConnectX 6 and various different sync cards in Sphere alone, let alone our other facilities. So we're very, very deep in with NVIDIA across the board. We also use the 3700s and 2700s switching topology for managing our assets in Sphere and also managing our SE2110 in Big Dome, if that's correct.
Yeah.
So we use actually for our data across the board, it comes into and goes out of an NVIDIA device at every step. Yeah, essentially.
100%. Yeah. From a creative perspective too. I mean, every machine that the artists are using to create content, it's touching an NVIDIA product at every level, every step.
Let's talk about creatives. I imagine that they needed to think about the workflows and the capture in a completely new way. It's a dome, like you have to do it in a new way. And I read as well that, and you mentioned it, Big Sky, you invented your own camera. How are you working with creatives, and what are some of their considerations as they put this content together?
There's a multitude of different approaches for this. So it depends on the sort of type of show. But ultimately, we talk about a cinematic show. There is a learning curve. So we forget everything you know. Forget all the books you've read. Forget how to frame a conversation. Forget the scale of the shot you typically use. You've got to learn everything from scratch. So people either get it or they don't, and it's very quick and apparent if they do or not. But we have to have people to come in. And simple things like, how do you frame the camera? Because this camera has a 180-degree lens on it. The whole camera is at sort of 50 degrees. It points up at the sky, and you think it looks very wrong from your gut instinct, but you realize that the focal point of the image is in sort of the lower third of the lens, and when you look at the screen, it translates beautifully because of all the arc of it all. And that's just one example. talk about doing stage shows, the U2 show, for example. Typically people come and watch the artist, or they watch the screens of the iMac next to the performers. We threw that away. We want you to come in and experience the whole thing as one sort of conceptual show. And so it's a lot of fun, actually. You get the creatives in, you have to beat them up a little bit, and then they finally get the penny drop moment comes in, and they start getting really creative with it. And one of the problems we do find, though, is because we've created this new experience, this new venue that is totally different from anything else, and we've really created a blank slate for people to come and work with. Creatives don't like that. Creatives like being shoved in a corner and go, this thing's really difficult and there's no money and no time. And they go, oh, suddenly I'm really creative and I think out of that. But when you go, here's a beautiful blank slate, you can do whatever you like, it's almost too broad. Yeah. So we're lucky now that we've done a couple of shows, and basically the corner is now don't do what they've done. So they have to think of something new. But yeah, the more we're doing it, the more fun we're having, and it's a completely new learning curve.
What have been some of the most creative challenges that have been overcome that you've seen from some of the shows that you run?
So from the kind of system architecture side, you have this spec and we wait for creative people to put on beautiful stuff. I guess I was surprised at what doesn't work in the space sometimes, because you have these ideas in your head of, oh, if I'm in this virtual space, essentially you could do everything, right? But some stuff is fascinating. Nauseating is a good way to put it. Yeah.
When we were first learning about the camera, and we basically strap it on anything we could find, send it out in the field, and say, okay, how does this look? I mean, we did roller coasters, which is the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. It was terrible.
That's kind of what I was
roller
talking about.
coaster, strap it on a NASCAR. I mean, so there was a lot of learning we had to do to even get to the point where we could kind of teach other people how to do it.
It's so successful. It really does take you somewhere else. So things like, if I just tilt the horizon of the camera down 5 degrees, everybody leans forward. You're like, oh, shit, this is unexpected, or if you pan the camera too fast sideways, it's very destabilizing and unnerving to people. So we had to learn to be subtle with camera movements. Yeah. Zooming in is all right, but zooming out felt weird. Yeah. All sorts of weird things like that. But also we could use that creatively. So in postcards, there's a great shot where it goes over the lip of the Grand Canyon into this river, and it really does make people sort of lean forward, and it's fantastic. But there was a lot of subtle things that we just didn't anticipate that we're still learning now.
And so those are some of the things you're learning around the creative process, around the technology side of things. What have been some of the learnings?
Need more storage.
Yeah.
Faster storage.
Always
Faster
more.
storage.
Definitely more storage, more of everything. There's a lot of learnings on this. I think, honestly, one thing you touched upon, Alex, is people either get it or they don't get it. Yeah. I found people getting people to get rid of the concept of a rectangular screen that you can see behind you, and just imagining that your entire field of view is now your canvas. Getting your brain to think like that is so hard, and I think that's the hardest learning curve for people.
Yeah. Even on a tech point of view, right? It's like, are you willing to try something that you thought was 3 years out, 5 years out? Can we do it in 18 months? Are you willing to try that? All these conferences around here are talking about fantastic use cases, singular use cases. Somebody's figured out, we wanted to start putting all of those things together. Are you willing to come and partner with these other companies with us and try something new? And I think some of those things we've broken, basically. Mm-hmm. As we've gone through these various gentlemen's pipelines, we've got to the next step and gone, oh, there's another hurdle. And we've got to, now we figured that piece out, and we've gone, oh, finally we figured that out. We get to the next one, we go, oh, there's another roadblock. Yep. There's another one and another one. And we keep having to do, you think about camera to screen and all the traditional steps that are in between that. We broke one at every stage just because the sheer amount of data or the sheer the scale of things or what we're trying to do to make this completely immersive. And so we had to reinvent everything. It's been challenging.
Yeah, from a post-production standpoint, the workflow not much different from camera to screen, but it is that the biggest hurdle is the scale. And so every step of that pipeline, like I said, it was a lot of reinventing of the wheel where we would get so far and be like, well, okay, that didn't work. Back to the drawing board. And, oh, I did it this way 3 years ago, and this was really successful on 2K footage. Okay, that's not going to work. So it was definitely like a very heavy R&D of just let's break it. Let's see what happens. And that was kind of the exciting draw to it, especially for me, because I'd been in the industry for probably 15 years, film and visual effects, and I got out, and I was happy. And I was in AI and ML, and I was like, yes. And then when MSG called and said, we're trying to do this thing, I was like, that's impossible. I'm in. Fine, let's do it. So it's been that, like, from the beginning. It's always coming to the next hurdle and seeing, like, how much further do you think we can push this, and kind of just, trying to think forward and think about, how many experiences can we do at the same time? Like, how much can we push through this pipeline? So that's kind of the exciting part, and it's always, like I said, if you work on pipeline, you're never done with pipeline. Like, it's just always going.
I know early in the design process, you sort of think you have your head wrapped around what this facility is, how it's going to be used. And I know one of our biggest challenges is, outside of maintaining the integrity of these beautiful images going through the screen, how you use it and how you maintain the reliability of it and all those kind of things is very similar to the kind of front side of this. On the back side of it is, that just doesn't work like we thought. And we need to change our software approach and change the way we utilize hardware and change our interconnectivity strategy and things. So there really wasn't anything you could do better. It just takes time to go over those hurdles along the way. Yeah. And then we hope to come out at the other side with something that is really beautiful and fun to use, right? It's what I was telling the guys last night. The thing has to be fun to use. Regardless of the grandiose scale, it has to be fun and easy to use. And then people can come in and do amazing things with it. And I think we're turning something out that's pretty special. Yeah.
And so how do you test content for these displays? What are you using for that?
We built a bigger sphere until Las Vegas was finished. In Burbank, in Los Angeles, we built a quarter-scale replica that we affectionately call Big Dome. Okay. That is same content, same resolution, much smaller screen. We shrunk everything down in there. But yeah, we go through rounds and rounds of iterations of edits and tests and concepts and scale, and we have people come in and witness it, and what do you feel like afterwards? But it doesn't. I'd say it's probably 80% accurate, but it's technology-wise, it's exactly the same. But the scale and the feeling isn't quite there.
On what translates, yeah.
And how you just got to go to the venue, but
and color, from a creative perspective as well. Color was a big challenge that we had to, as we were reviewing in Big Dome, how do we match the color profile, which is a completely different environment and sphere versus Big Dome. Some other things that we have is we have a software called Playdate, which is a VR headset that resolution's terrible, but it gives you the sense of kind of positioning and where things sit. So those are our two biggest.
So you're using VR as part of that process?
Correct, yes.
And yeah, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so it's even on set. So we have them deployed on set. So as they're going out and filming, they can get direct feedback of how it would look or how it would translate in the sphere.
There's no 16K preview monitor for cameras yet.
Right.
So we had to figure out, like I say, one more hurdle we had to figure out, right? Yeah. How do we go into the field and make sure the shot's in focus? So we end up using VR.
Yeah.
What else we use VR for?
Well, I think just the review process, again, to translate how things fit on the screen. Also for reviews, for director reviews or client reviews on the content. It's also used for our exosphere content, so you're able to kind of get a preview of what things will look like on the outside, which, for the exosphere, it's a much higher turnaround of content, so they need a much faster ability to test these things, and so VR gives them the opportunity to jump in and just kind of triple check that things look good.
There are so many different technological milestones that we've talked about. What does it mean for the future of display technology?
It's curved.
It is curved. It's curved and immersive, right?
Yeah, I think honestly we're at a very interesting point in technology. We found that LED. I think there's a change in LED going to come over time. The display technology is definitely going to improve over time. The current methodologies that are used across the board are frankly kind of old, and the methodologies that we're looking at are going to be better in time.
But I also think it's the expectations. So now everything from clients to customers to artists, now they've seen this, they're expecting more. Yeah. So they don't want to go backwards. People don't want to go and perform in front of a screen, on a square stage with line array speakers and lights hanging. It's like, what's the next level? What can we do? Why do we make our show different? And the people that have come through, you two and Fish coming up recently, are really getting behind this stuff. And I think the more people that come through this, and cinematographers and other things too, it's going to have such a positive effect on the industry that everything from a tech point of view, and we appreciate that not everyone has massive budgets and buildings to build, but I hope if somebody takes one piece of this and puts it into their venue, all these things are going to permeate into the rest of the industry, and I think it's really going to change things.
Yeah. Well, I think something we haven't really talked about, and we don't have anyone on this stage that can give it justice, but the audio experience alone in the Sphere is mind-blowing, and it's 160,000 beamforming audio speakers that literally we have full control over the Z-axis, the X, the Y-axis. So each seat has the exact same audio experience, but we also can control that. So as part of the creative process, it's now that, one of the questions you asked earlier is like, how do you get a director or someone that's creating content to think about the Sphere? And so it's not only the visual experience and the field of view, but it's how you can play with audio and how you can kind of move sound through the Sphere and animate the sound. And it changes. And I think, for Postcards from Earth, I think we just touched the surface of what we can do. And so kind of a lot of our initiative now is like, well, how can we break this? That's kind of our whole mentality. Like, how can we break this and do it better?
You're creating an environment, right? It's not showing a movie anymore. You're
Yeah.
literally creating an environment people are in, and then,
It's like a whole new medium.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
A medium that has to work seamlessly, because otherwise it feels very alien. But if you get it right and we time everything beautifully, and it has the 4D and it has the scent and the wind and the heat and the audio that isn't just coming at you, it really surrounds you. It really does. It is transformative.
Yep.
And so, let's put our future lens on, and we talked about impact on the industry, but what does that mean for the future of entertainment, as we know it?
More of it.
Well, and I think too, it's, that we spent, the last several years in the pandemic where going out and experiencing something, I think people were craving that. They wanted to go out and be a part of something. And I think the Sphere kind of changes that entire landscape where you can go to a movie and sit in a seat and maybe it reclines and maybe they serve drinks, but like the Sphere is, you're completely immersed.
It's an experience, isn't
Yeah.
it? And I think people use this word a lot. They use immersive a lot and the new experiential, thing. We think we've achieved that with this, actually.
Yep.
You go there, your walk to the venue, you're already getting more involved with it. You already see the outside of it. You can spend an hour in our atrium where there's a bunch of technology you can go and hang out with that is not readily available to public. So you can get really close to it. You then go into the bowl and see the actual show and you experience that. And the whole thing really is sort of a package that goes together. And I think people want that more. I think from our research, the public are craving more of an experience rather than a passive go and watch something.
Yep.
Wonderful. Any questions from our audience for our panel? I think we have our microphone there, and Rick is going to help to facilitate that. I see so many hands going up, so this is wonderful.
Good. We like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Seppi, we also have some questions from the virtual audience.
Oh,
so.
fantastic. Wonderful. Sir, yes, please.
Okay, two quick ones. How often do the panels go out, interior or exterior, and how often do you replace them? That's the first question, real quick.
So exterior is an individual puck product. So
Right.
and they are, and it's completely redundant backup. It's even if, let's be honest about it, the scale of this building, even if we hit 1% manufacturing tolerances,
Right.
you're still talking about thousands of these things. So not very often. There's a curve with LED product as well. It tends to break quickly early, and then it settles down. We're now in that settle down period. The outside was open since last July, producing content. So it's been on 24/7 since July, and so very rarely. The inside is still just coming into that settling period, but we have vast amounts of testing and sort of pre-show checks that we do every day to check that sort of thing. But it happens occasionally, yeah.
It's just fantastic, actually. I've been there myself. Okay, so last question. May 4th, Death Star?
You're not the first to ask.
Yes, no, no?
you have to see.
Plead the
what's on-
fifth.
Damn. May the force be with you then.
Hey guys, thank you very much for the discussion. It's definitely a feat of engineering. I'm a video compression engineer at NVIDIA, so every time that I hear this much data going around my head kind of explodes in a good way. So I'm very curious, what are you guys doing for storage of this stuff?
Well, you should talk about it really. There's multiple tiers is the short answer.
Yeah.
So there's everything from production storage in our Burbank facility that has 5 layers to it,
Yeah.
through to the venue, and through we have various different colos around the country which we use to transport data and things around with. And then the streaming NAS that Paul and
Right.
and AJ were talking about too, which isn't really storage. It's more about a large device that can.
Yeah, I would think about the storage and venue not like an actual storage device. Like we call it a NAS, but realistically, it's just a hard drive that's insanely fast. I think the throughput on it is 400 gigabytes per second max
Yep.
throughput, which equates to 3.2 terabits per second. So it's insanely fast.
Yep.
And we think of it just like a local hard drive, honestly. But we, although the further answer your question, when we transfer data to Sphere, we hold it off-site and then transfer it to Sphere for actual playback. So we've got multiple layers before it gets to the venue itself. And speaking about compression, all uncompressed, 12-bit, 444, all the way. We never go compressed.
So I'm asking because, since you guys already have so much NVIDIA hardware, we have encoders and decoders there. It's something that maybe you can get for free. Maybe can help also with moving around if you can compress it a little bit, that can actually help a lot.
Never stops. It's raw all the way.
Yeah.
As soon as it hits his storage, basically, and it outputs to us, it's raw uncompressed.
Yep.
So we never go compression. No encoders or decoders.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I have 2 questions for you. One is about creation and then one is about recording. So you take, for example, Live Experience, a band that may have done more shows at MSG than anybody else who's coming in there. Were they able to take anything that they've done in a 2D world and start transforming it to 3D to this world? Or is it all brand new? And then second question is, consider a band that records everything and lets their fans watch it live or on demand. Is that even possible?
Yes and
Yep.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, obviously we can't talk about too many details with the upcoming band because they haven't actually done a performance yet. But yeah, we use a lot of existing content, and actually, a lot of people in this conference are involved with those things. We use AI, we use machine-based imagery, we use a lot of other tools to help upscale that imagery or rasterize it in a way that can be utilized so that they don't have to make everything again. Because you're right, especially the cost of creation of these movies, especially if we go right the way through to camera rather than the CG manipulation, is costly.
Yep.
Right, it takes a lot of people. It takes we go on site, and then it's a lot of data immediately, and then of course it's color and edit and
Right.
snowball. So it's quite labor intensive still. CG a little less so. So we are conscious of that. We want bands to be able to come in here and like AJ said, we want to make it fun, right? We want to make it easy for you to come in. We want you to choose our venue. So we have a sort of plethora of tools that when you first come to our venue, we go, here's your sort of menu, your food menu of all the things you can do. And of course some are expensive and some are not, and we basically sort of reverse your show into a joint budget with it's like
Yeah, the idea is how do we make it? How do we make it repeatable? Like, I think it's fair to say we opened Pandora's box, and we did one show, one residency, and now I think the slate is filling up. Our dance card is pretty heavy, so we have to think about those things of how can we get content in and create content and convert content as quickly as possible. So it's a lot of that side on pipeline of building those tools that allow a creative to come in and say, okay, here's what I'm trying to do. Here's the tool set to do it. Go nuts. Have fun.
I don't know if that addresses your question, the idea of, Josh and the team have really set the bar on, 12-bit native stuff is incredible. We can't imagine that everyone is going to be doing that. So there are levels to that, and that's a lot of the testing that Paul and team with our team is doing in Burbank is what works. Where is the threshold of you have to at least be here for something to feel right, and taking it maybe post and trying to warp it onto the screen as opposed to doing something native. And those are the things that we have to try to accommodate. Is all sorts of different formats and flavors.
Right. Remember the scale of this building. So even if I take a native 4K image, it's something like 115 foot across. So great. The source, as long as the source is 4K, we do pixel to pixel. That goes so far. But I then start scaling it up. You can go probably 50% bigger with it, but any more than that, it starts to fall apart. Especially things like broadcast graphics. You're taking a sports feed, and you're looking at player stats or anything like that. They tend to be 1080p, and so even when you put them up native, it's tiny or it falls apart very quickly. So yeah, we're conscious of those things.
And then from a recording perspective, is that even possible where you can watch it live somewhere else if you can't get a ticket?
You can, and we are doing those things.
Yep.
It is. It's very difficult to translate something that is, and I'm sure you've all guys have all seen on social media, people in there filming U2 concerts and postcards. It doesn't really translate. You don't get that experiential feeling. You don't get those peripheral views, the really immersive sound. And so it doesn't really translate. It is still good, don't get me wrong. Like, I love seeing all the social media aspects. I love seeing people enjoying themselves on it. But for me, the only place to do it is in the building.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi, I'm in the business of building arenas, and my question is, based on what his last question, what is the user experience like outside the arena if you're able to give one for fan engagement? You just talked about the quality, but what is it like? Can you actually put a screen outside the arena, the sphere, or if it's not a sphere, does your technology enable to give some type of creative user experience outside the arena while an event is going on inside?
We do those things already. So Formula One came through in November. We ended up, the sphere became part of the central part of that paddock. They put giant screens up. They did a whole live experience there. Yes, is the short answer. There is walkways and areas that we can activate. There's all sorts of exterior signs. Depends on really what you want to achieve. But the answer is yes. We have all the infrastructure requirements. The connections for OB trucks, all those kind of things. There's plenty of tech everywhere in that building. And you can manipulate the outside, the exosphere screen to be whatever suits your requirements with those, and we can go as much or as little as you want.
So it doesn't have to be permanent. It can be an activation just for that particular day.
It could be, yeah. And we've been doing that with some of our corporate partners that are coming through and doing people that are doing one-off events with us. Mm-hmm. Yes, we do sort of unique exhibitions.
Thanks.
Anytime.
Hi, yeah, I'd love to hear any sort of technical aspects on the playback side that you're willing to share. Are you doing all proprietary things, or are you using like a Disguise or Touch Designer sort of playback server, and how many kind of machines are playing back the signal, or have you integrated any game engines like Unreal to do real-time playback? Are you exploiting?
Luckily, you've got the right guys.
Okay.
Right here.
Yeah, I used to work at Obscure Digital, so I'm familiar with a lot of the tech. But yeah, I'd love to hear how it's changed over the years, because I've been out of the scene.
Yes, certainly. In Sphere, we've developed two types of media servers. One is called a 7 Sense Actor. AJ works for 7 Sense. You can kind of think of it like a Disguise system. It's a media server platform, but it's the next level. It's the next level of performance. So it's all the devices and components in it are the next level of power. So when it comes to processing media under standard media server shows, in the box itself, it can process 3 layers of 12-bit 444 in terms of bandwidth, uncompressed media.
I'll use a tagline. We have a passion for performance.
Nice.
And that the primary actor media server is, you think about like baked playback, but you can do media server functions with that too. You can take an iMag and do color effects. You can do all the, we actually have Notch now implanted natively within the actor media server in Sphere, and it's running natively on a day-to-day basis there. But the second media server we developed actually is specifically developed just for game engines. And our primary game engine that we're planning on running natively is Unreal. And the plan for that is 16K native Unreal straight to screen. So 2 media server platforms, both outputting 2110, that go into another 7 Sense box called a juggler, and that's the final pixel processing box that goes to screen. Now,
I was going to say, and that's a 25 box cluster array, so that's larger than any other game engine cluster at the moment, as far as NVIDIA or anybody else is concerned. So
25 per bank. We have a backup bank.
yeah, and then
at all
another bank
times.
that's running in sync as well. So
Are you using like InfiniBand for synchronization between the boxes, or no? Just standard?
No, great question. So the high-speed streaming NAS, when we were coming up with the concept of rent or playing back video in the first place, we were looking at InfiniBand way back in the days, like 3 or 4 years ago, more I think at this stage, and we wanted to go down the SMB path. So the platform that we built with Hitachi Vantara, we went through several iterations of testing and developed a brand new system. It's incredible by Hitachi Vantara that outputs SMB shares directly to all the 7 Sense actors. So no InfiniBand required. And the throughput on that though is it's 100 gig connections, and you said the number earlier on. It's 7 gigabytes per second per endpoint, all SMB shares.
Great. Is there info on the 7 Sense website, or is this all sort of just?
yeah, absolutely. You can go to 7sense.1 and a bunch of stuff on there.
Great question. Thank you.
And I'll just ask the top question here that came in from the virtual broadcast, which was Dolores from Iowa is asking, where and how do you see generative AI video being applied to the sphere?
I think initially it's going to aid us with content production. So we are everything from upscaling existing content to a certain extent, generating new content, helping us, accelerate production pipelines, because this year we're doing something very new, and at the moment it's extremely human laborious. So we've got to accelerate that, and we think AI tools it's one of the reasons we're here. We think AI tools are really going to help accelerate those things. Everything from automating color processes, automating traditional editing tools.
Camera process.
Camera process.
Like
Yeah, exactly.
Every step of the way, I think there's an injection of AI that we're interested in exploring.
We do a lot with robotics. We do a lot with other things that are a bit more theatrical. So there's a whole bunch of work that's happening there too. Just more about fan engagement and about customer experience. We use a lot of AI to already generate artwork that's in our building, maths-based artwork. Things like we use just fun stats and things from ticket sales or from who's visiting the building that week to generate artwork. There's lots of tiers, everything from creative to operational, and engagement again. But I think every layer of everything we're doing is there's some sort of AI, ML, new buzzword, insert please, used everywhere. So a lot.
Yeah.
And with just a couple of minutes left, final thoughts from our panel.
Oof. I think for me, final thoughts. Again, I joined this project because it seemed impossible, and we achieved that collectively, and it's been quite an experience. And for me, I think it's what's next. What can we do next? Like what can we break and change? And I think the idea of these kind of experiences popping up everywhere is really what we want to get towards. I think what's next is we follow the technology. We see how far we can take it, break it, and do something cool. Make cool stuff. That's all I want to do.
You're only as good as your last show.
That's right.
Right? So what's next that's one of the reasons we're here. We want to see what other people are doing too. And how do we we're lucky our chairman's really into technology, and we want to just loop all that stuff in. Like we are sponges. We want to come here and learn and say, you're only as good as your last show, so we've got to do something bigger, something better, something more exciting. We've got to keep that fan engagement and keep the excitement level for Sphere.
Yeah, I'd say we couldn't have been more honored to been asked to join this project. It raises the bar on a lot of levels, and 7 Sense isn't a massive company, but we're always looking for the next best thing and pushing the limits and the boundaries of hardware and software and everything, and this is the limit at the moment, it seems.
Yeah, we're definitely enjoying pushing the limits. So the amount of appreciation and people contacting us, want to get involved with Sphere has been incredible since we've launched, and it's really just helped to push us and continue to drive us forward with what we want to go. We just want to keep on going further.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I'd love to thank all of our panelists for the wonderful discussion that we had, and thank you for coming and watching, and enjoy the rest of GTC.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.